Welcome to Flywheel Leadership. I'm Graham Peely, and I'm joined by Chris Hallberg of GoExpand, Business Sergeant, and he's also an EOS implementer. We're going to walk through Chris's journey and discuss how it brought him here today. Let's get into it. Chris, what's your superpower, and how does that show up in the work you do for others?
Brutal honesty, Graham. Calling balls and strikes and not being shy to do it.
Love that. That is the point that so many need to hear is the real stuff, not just what they're being sold or, the fluffy stuff that feels good to tell people, but the actual real stuff that it can be said in a kind way, but it's important that it is delivered and is heard. So thank you. Appreciate you bringing that today.
Yeah, you mentioned the kind word. That's a talk track that I have with all of my clients. Stop being nice and start being kind. Being kind sometimes involves a difficult conversation, bringing a blind spot into the open pane. But being nice is that typical, I'm from Minnesota, long O when I say it, and we're very passive aggressive in the Midwest. So, that's a great idea. What an idiot, as soon as they turn the corner. And really being passive aggressive is just, it's just wrong. So like being kind, again, is saying, hey, for the greater good, I got to have this conversation. And we all grew up with the movie Bambi, where Thumper's mom says, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And that is the opposite direction to be an entrepreneurial, privately held, some family fortunes ride on the success of this business versus a big corporation with thousands of shareholders and the malaise we see in big government organizations, big corporations, where literally 20% of the people do 80% of the work. In a privately held entrepreneurial scenario, just a handful of people on your team, regardless of your size, can be damning. I refer to the bad apple effect, which is a study that was made years ago at a university, and they had like some 80 scenarios where they had these high-performing teams, and they just inserted a C or a D player, and within minutes, the A players became C players. Not a single D player got into the A range. So, one of the big things that I coach is let's really take a good look at this team right here. Does everyone deserve to be on this team? Does everyone want to be on this team? And are we willing to be kind and caring, humans, but also keep our expectations high and keep things classy? Without that, the teams identify as being a top team versus actually having, twice the EBITDA, twice the retention, real metrics that would say you've got a smoking hot business.
Identifying as a top team versus real performance as a top team, two different things for sure. You mentioned one thing there. So weeding out the bad apples was actually a core value of one of the companies that I worked for early on in my career. So definitely hear you there. So before we get too into a lot of the weeds that we're going to talk about today, I would love for you just to kind of frame up, first of all, what is EOS? That way listeners have the context for this conversation.
Absolutely, Graham. EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System, a book almost 20 years ago by my good friend Gino Wickman. It's called Traction, Get a Grip on Your Business. If you haven't read that one yet at this point, you can thank Graham for bringing this one to your attention. This is usually a founder to a founder, a little nudge. Hey, I know there's literally a million business books. This one will change your life because this book has actually changed the lives of thousands, at this point, hundreds of thousands of companies. And really what EOS is, the simplest way to explain, it's a simple set of holistic tools to line and synchronize all the moving parts of a business. So 6 key components. I like to joke EOS is like CrossFit for business. If you do these 6 exercises, you look like an action figure. So the first key component is the vision component, getting the leadership team, the management team, and the greater team 100% on the same page, where we're going and how we're going to get there. One address into the GPS, not what do you think? What do you think? And then trying to accommodate all the different addresses and planning to get one of them quickly. Second key component is the people component. This comes right from Jim Collins' Good to Great. Right people, right seats. Right people share your core values. They value what you value in a business setting. They're not fighting against your work ethic or your commitment or your candor or your execution. They're in it to win it just like you are. The right seat means that they get, want, and have the capacity. There's also a bunch of acronyms in EOS, so that's why ex-military people love EOS, because acronyms allow you to remember a lot more stuff. So get it right, want it, and capacity. If you're the right person in the right seat, and 80, 90% of the people fit that description, you'll have a great business. My experience is having 80% right people, right seats is good. That's a high-performing business. But that 20% is still enough to keep us from greatness. Once you get to about 90% right people, right seats, they'll clear the last 10% out organically. And then you have like a world-class 93% engagement survey type level awesome company that probably makes twice the EBITDA. Third key component, the data component, getting past the egos, personalities, and the subjectives. I'm sure most people don't have any big personalities on their team, right? So this is getting past all of that and boiling everything down to a handful of numbers, weekly activities that bring monthly results, metrics, KPIs, any of those terms. It's a scorecard. Hit a number, on track, thanks, off track. Let's drop that down for issue processing so we can get it on track. When you're strong in vision, strong in people, strong in data, your business is open, honest, lucid. Problems or issues stick out like a sore thumb. So that's the fourth key component, the issues component. And we have a long-term and short-term issue list. Long-term issues are 90 days or greater. And 90 days doesn't sound like a long-term issue, but in EOS, that is so next quarter. I have no effort for that. I've weighed it, measured it. I've placed it there for good therapy. It's cathartic just to get rid of it. And then we're going to focus on near-term issues. And every 90 days, we look at those long-term issues and try to make them short-term issues. And then we have a process called IDS, identify, discuss, and solve. Most people are good at the D part, but they're solving a symptom, not the root issue. So if we can solve issues at the root, even if they're attached to a sacred cow or an owner or something like that, we can get past ourselves there. And then we discuss at minimum, and then we solve it with to-dos. To-dos are 7-day promises that get done at 90% or better. That's how we gain traction by 90% of our weekly commitments coming true the very next week. Then we go to the fifth key component, which is the process component. Think of just quite simply, Graham, the 20% that gives you the 80%. Checklist, outline, software-based rules, stuff that we do all the time. We're professionals. We should do it this way because the customers like it. And obviously, it's infinitely scalable when we all do it the same way. And then sixth and final key component of EOS is the traction component. And that is a couple of things. First, creating rocks. That's a term coined by the late Dr. Stephen Covey. Rocks are just huge priorities, big projects, usually outside of the day-to-day. When done, gives us a new capacity or new capability to be awesome. But they're just things that, they can be day-to-day things are broken. They're just things that we need to do to build the future business. And then we create a 90-day world. Turns out humans, especially if they do the same thing year-round, get a little off track, get a little frayed. So every 90 days, we pick people up, we dust them off, we pat them on the back, we kick them in the butt, whatever that human's got coming for them. And then we refocus where we were, where we're at today, what we've learned, where we're going. Let's go have some fun. So that we have this EOS cadence where we're having a quarterly meeting with the implementer. We're then a couple of days later having a state of the company meeting where we do that retrospective, current perspective, future, and then some fun. Then we have our quarterly conversations between the leader and the led, what's working, what's not working, how can I be a better leader, how could you, live your core values, GWC, and get your rocks done. We have that, and then we move forward for another 90 days. So think about 1 day of vision, 89 days of traction, or 1 week of vision week, team week, and then 12 weeks of pure chopping wood. And that when you do those 6 things well, those are the big muscles of any business. So any place there's a team of 10 or more, those 6 key components, your ability to get those 80, 90% strong determines what kind of business that you have. And at this point, we've had hundreds of thousands of companies go through the program. Only about 10% of the companies, usually ones over, say, 2 million in revenue and 10 employees, would then hire a professional, certified, or expert EOS implementer. The other 90% are under that target market. And we have a self-implementer academy. We have all kinds of content that's out there, and you can just get the book. So this is something that it's easy to interact with, but rather than doing it a la carte, going all in and doing the holistic system, gets just a massive result when done well.
Well, that was a heck of a description. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. So would love to understand a little bit more about GoExpand and then Business Sergeant, however you'd like to kind of, I guess, share a little bit about your journey ahead of that, what led you to there, and then about both those parts of your business.
Yeah, fantastic. So I became, I exited my last business in 2011, an energy efficient remodeling firm in Minneapolis, St. Paul. So too young to retire, was going to take 6 months off. After about 6 weeks, my wife's like, hey, I think it's time for your next thing. You're not really built to lay around here and annoy us. You need to go start something else. So I was like, yeah, I agree. Too silly me thinking I could, sit somewhere for 6 months and just bask in my exit. So I was coaching someone that worked for me years ago. They had a company doing about $8 million in revenue in their second year, roofing company, no controls, really bad stuff. So I helped them kind of get their arms around that. And during the process, speaking with another old business partner of mine in Minneapolis, he was going through EOS implementation with an implementer. It's like, wow, this process is amazing. So you should look at this. Maybe you could be an EOS implementer. So I contacted them. The rest is history. So in early 2014, I joined the EOS community as an implementer. Been there ever since. Pushing 1,000 sessions and about 135 companies coached. Amazing. Never seen a tool work like this. 85% graduation rate. The only 15% are because we have some megalomaniac visionary, or they're not willing to speak the truth or make hard decisions or swap out the wrong people. But the other 85% get everything they want in about 2 or 3 years time, which is amazing to see how many transformations can occur. And wherever you come in, it just takes you up a level or two. So if you're already a pretty well-run business, this is how we get companies into the world-class territory. And if you're not doing well, we can get you, flying straight and then work on that journey to world-class. So in my travels, right, being in the session room, there are other EOS technologies. And again, I'm not putting anybody down. They're perfectly adequate, but a lot of suggestions. Whoa, somebody added this to this. Why doesn't it do this? And you sit in enough sessions, you're like, as an entrepreneur, you hear the problem 150 times. Eventually, you're just like, all right, that's enough. I'm going to do something about this. So GoExpand does all the stuff that the other EOS apps do well in a more connective manner. But it also feathers in 7 or 8 separate applications that are human-centric. Think pulse surveys, personality assessments, quarterly and annual performance reviews that don't fight with the EOS methodology, visualize scorecards, team dashboards where I can actually see right people, right seats, and a scatter plot. So it's like really taking the subjectivity out of EOS, which is the hardest part when we're dealing with human beings, and replace that with objective data, relative data. All the meetings are recorded. If you take a to-do, GoExpand just gives you a to-do. You don't have to stop the meeting and tap out the to-do. It's waiting in your dashboard. All of your meetings have contextual summaries. So it's not just the hour-and-a-half meeting. It's every time we've talked about this issue since the history of the meetings. Just really getting a platform that was built for much larger organizations and building the simple EOS parts upon that versus just building the car. We built the car parts on a spaceship, and that's the way we like to discuss GoExpand. So it's just the next generation. So it has the EOS tools, has the people tools, and it has an agentic AI agent where you can put your process, playbook, stop disturbing your teammates for dumb questions. You can ask all the dumb questions, and it'll give you all the smart answers. So that's what GoExpand is. We launched last August. We just showed at the EOS conference 2 weeks ago and got really great feedback. People are really excited, and people are migrating over to GoExpand and offer free demos and right now a 60-day free trial. Still running that from the EOS conference. And then secondly, Business Sergeant, that's my personal branding. I am the Business Sergeant. I wrote a book in 2017 called The Business Sergeant's Field Manual, military-grade business execution without the yelling and push-ups. So just stories that I learned in military leadership, civilian leadership, early days of EOS implementation, and how you can become a business sergeant. And all that is just having a more militaristic, team building based mindset. And we're throwing proposals, not grenades here. So this isn't life and death. But if we were to take our being on this team as an honor, and every day we have to show we're a good teammate, and accountability and commitment and all the things that an elite unit has, if we could just have a little bit of that. It doesn't have to be mean, doesn't have to be push-ups. It's fun. We joke a lot. We have a good time. But we don't accept failure as a reality, and we only want to work with people who feel the same way. So really curating a team of like-minded individuals. That way we're not fighting each other. We're fighting competitors or the market or the economy, which is hard enough to do that. So Business Sergeant is a free community where I teach veterans, many of them special operations veteran. My integrator and partner, Michael Crisella, has been out of the Army Special Forces for about a year and a half. He was a chief warrant officer and Silver Star, Purple Heart, Bronze Star with Valor, the real deal. Jedi Knight of the order, so to speak, MBA, just an amazing operator. And we now are placing the veterans in our community into veteran-friendly companies. So you're having a hard time with your warehouse in Poughkeepsie, we'll get you a Green Beret. Even if they never run a warehouse, I assure you in a quarter or two, they'll have that thing singing like a song. And our whole thesis is someone that's had $5 or $6 million of training over their career is probably a little more capable than somebody you sent to a seminar for a couple of days. So our guys can learn what you do in a quarter or two, unless you're splitting atoms or nuclear fission. I understand, maybe not there, but your best leader couldn't carry our guy's rucksack. They put it down by 10 a.m. And these people have been selected out of 1,000, other 1,000 and 1,000. So those are the three things I work on. So if you have the operating system, right, and then you have the military mindset, software to run it well, and access to the best leaders on the planet, we're kind of stacking the deck. And you don't need to use all three things together. You can a la carte those. It's not required. But as an entrepreneur, you see a need and you fill it. And this is kind of my version of a tech stack or a feature stack to allow companies to really kind of get a hold of it if that's what they're looking for, because there's so many different flavors of EOS. We have about 850 implementers worldwide. I'm just one of them, and that's how I roll.
Very good. What inspires you most about the work you're doing right now?
Oh, just to see the after picture. Like the before picture is so different. I've have companies on level 1 and people that come to me on level 8 or 9. But getting people to level 8 to 10 as an end state and watching that migration, it's like proud papa stuff where a couple of years later, they're like, oh, this is going to be hard. Like, I got you. You guys can do this. And then watching, say removing a leader that I can sniff out pretty early. Yeah, this person is a selfish jerk and they pretend to be a teammate, but it's not there. And we get that person ousted, liberated to the marketplace, and we see their number 2 step up and just shine and literally be 2x as productive. The same people that were here are being squished and silenced are now free to contribute. So it's just, I love to fire bad bosses. I'm sorry. I'll just say it. I love to put a kick in someone's step and a smile on their face, knowing that I removed the rock from their shoe on their road march, and watching teams just kind of get it with the right team. It's very satisfying. And I've had, 125, 130, something like that, people. Probably a good 30 or 40 of those have exited quite well. So watching someone realize their dreams, watching the team get golden handcuffs and stock options and change lives, that's what gets me jazzed is watching people come together as a team and win.
One thing you mentioned, Chris, when it comes to having the right people or getting the right people off the bus, that's just another roadblock, right? That is, it really is. And, you don't want to call people roadblocks, but at times they are. As far as traction in the business, it's not possible when you've got people in the way that are really, in a sense, working against the business in a lot of cases. So that makes a lot of sense what you're talking about. Can you share a specific story, one that really kind of gets to the work that you love to do and you've had so much success doing?
Well, I think about a client that just had an exit. It was nearly $1 billion exit, and they probably had 2 or 3 locations when they hired me maybe, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, something like that, maybe a little bit more. And we worked together for, 3 or 4 years, a little longer than the average 2-year journey. And just having the systems, they were in the physicist business. So calibration of MRI machines, nuclear big stuff. And basically having 2 locations to having 20 or 30 locations, or like 25 locations, and then buying in at a majority and letting the physicists be physicists, so to speak, and then adding sophistication, business operations, EOS, right people, right seats, all the stuff, all the way through all those partner companies, and watching each of those founders, have an exit of many times more than they could have if they had done it on their own. So this is like the great example of a roll-up, like a healthy one, where they're actually bringing, you just do what you love, we'll bring in this sophistication and we'll be able to grow as a team. So watching that entire group have this amazing exit and all those lives being changed all at once, that's pretty awesome to start at, maybe 13, 14 million in revenue, then end up, in the hundreds of millions of revenue, and then having an exit, close to $1 billion. It's pretty exciting to see that kind of growth and be a part of that, for 3 or 4 years.
For sure. One thing I think of as we're talking is facing the brutal facts. Like you could have this, aspirational vision on where you want to go and, have all these great things that actually take real work to get there. But what about facing where we're at today and actually looking at it with clear, honest eyes, not pointing necessarily fingers at any one person or yourself, but really just being completely honest on this is the business and this is where we're at today and the true facts and the reality. Anything come to mind on how you kind of get a founder to really see that and accept it? Like, this is what's really going on?
Yeah, I mean, look at your EBITDA versus your class, your near peers. Look at your retention rate. Look at just the general vibe of your tribe. Making money is one thing. Having fun while you do it, and having a sustainable organization where you're just pinching yourself, going, I can't believe my people figured this out. Like, I can't believe I have. How did I get so fortunate to have all of these wonderful people helping, making impacts? So it doesn't matter what you do. If you're going to take the time away from your family to do it, it takes just as much time to be world-class as it does to be pathetic and sad. Like, the amount of hours it takes to do that really is the same. You're just choosing to be awesome. And when you curate a team of like-minded people, you're also creating a space. The world we live in today, Graham's a little weird, right? Like, let's not get into politics, but we could just say, wow, there is some stuff today that, years ago would be like, that's crazy. Okay, right. The Corona, for instance, kind of killed the will of a lot of people working, shutting down the economy for a year, allowing people to have 4 remote jobs simultaneously, handing out a bunch of benefits to sit home. All the prices went up. Like, business got really hard in 2020, right? And, just look at like what a gallon of milk or eggs or just consumables cost. The average human's comp has gone up just a little bit, but the cost it's $100 to feed your family on DoorDash, you know what I mean? And you're not having, duck or, caviar, right? These are just fast food things. So I think my point being, the world we live in is crazy, right? Parts of the country are even crazier. So if that's the environment that our humans and all of our employees are citizens of the world, right? Can we provide a place where they come to 8 to 10 hours a day? It just makes sense. Up is down, left is left, right is right. And we can just speak the truth and be ourselves, be united and win together. That's really cool to see, in an unstable world, if you can create a company that's very solid, very stable, and you retain people and people are feel gracious and happy to be there versus, all these TV shows about The Office, Graham. That stuff's funny unless you're on Michael Scott from Dunder Mifflin Papers team, right? And then the district regional manager is making your life hard and right, you have some unhealthy after work habits or something like that. So I think the neat thing about entrepreneurs are is even in a crazy world, we can create a stable, fun environment where things make sense and we get to make that impact to our customers in whatever form you make it.
I love the way you're talking about just taking all this craziness that's going on in the world. And, I think we always think it's crazier in the moment than in the past, but sometimes you're like, well, is it? Could be a little crazier right now.
No, we're certifiably crazy right now. I don't want to get into politics. That's not what this is about. The left and the right are so far apart that you wonder, how we're the same country. It's like most of the people I talk to, they're more purple. They're a little red and a little blue, and they're reasonable and they're moderates. But both parties are run by the extreme elements of each parties.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't be really a moderate Democrat or a moderate Republican because that's not how either party votes. So you're kind of forced to go with the closest to what you'd want to see versus mostly what you'd want to see. So hopefully as a nation, we can figure that out. But back to business, treat everyone like gold. But people can't identify as being on track. You are not. You're hitting your numbers, you're a good teammate, or you're just creating issues and you're the star of your own movie and we're all just extras and you're going to do what you're going to want to do and we can't say anything about it. That is no bueno. That's no good. And I think empowering privately held entrepreneurial companies to be very clear with who we are, why we exist, and who's going to thrive here and who's not, and not being overly inclusive to bring in terrorists and supplant activists. So like a terrorist, right, isn't someone who's blowing your company up with TNT. They're missing deadlines. They're having parking lot meetings about the new VP. They're doing little things to subvert unity, harmony, and team health. And when we are in a healthy company and somebody starts smack talking the vision or the executive team, like, whoa, wait a minute here. What's going on? We don't do that here. Like, because the average American literally does the minimum amount necessary not to get fired every year. Those are the office shows, right? And the reason why it's funny is because it's so true. And we don't have to talk about how great the service is at your local DMV. Like, that joke is well known that people don't go to certain places to be world-class performers, right? You could forget to wear pants for a week at some of these places and not be dismissed. Whereas in the privately held entrepreneurial world, like, this is someone's future. This is like, everyone else is just going to get another job, maybe not, but someone's going to have some real hardship in their life crashing a business. So understanding that at a small company with 20 or 50, 100 employees, just having a handful of the wrong ones can be so painful. Hanging on to the wrong people is probably the biggest mistake entrepreneurs make, especially visionary entrepreneurs, because most of us visionary entrepreneurs are just wounded children trying to please somebody. And that's why EOS talks about the visionary integrator dynamic. Two people to run a business: the CEO, usually the founder, the stockholder, the COO, or the president. That's the one that makes the trains run on time. They have, like, Batman and Robin are a crime-fighting duo. They fight way more crime than either one of those dudes could in tights, right, by themselves. So really having someone with a lot of ideas, say 20 a month, the integrator like kills 19 of them because they're a distraction, but the one that comes through is pure gold. Integrators finish things that visionaries start more than they finish. Integrators complete the completable tasks. They're good with conversations, holding people accountable. Most visionary entrepreneurs who are in an operations role are miserable, and it's not fun. So, do external stuff, raising money, shaking hands, kissing babies, managing the culture, creating the products, that kind of thing. That's good visionary work. But managing the leadership team, looking at spreadsheets, having, TPS report conversations, HR conversations, that is a different skill set. And if you don't have it and you're doing that work, there's a lot of people suffering downstream. So just know thyself and put yourself in the right seat is the best advice I can give your listeners.
Certainly. one thing going back to what you were talking about before with really giving people a space to put the world aside and focus on some great work is I just think of like looking at your organization, your business as giving them like that's the platform and permission to do great work, or in your terms, you mentioned world class. Like I love that concept of just let's create a space where that's what we do here. Like excellence is how we operate, right?
Yeah, I think the simplest things when people say, "Well, what are we doing here?" Like, let me just tell you on day one. Like, I'm gonna give you a lot of stuff. You don't have to use it all. This is kind of a choose your own adventure. But when we get to a load bearing wall, I'm going to let you know we can't knock that down, or we're all going to get crushed by the floor above us. I just tell folks real easy to understand this, Graham, is our job here is very simple. We are here to create an environment where the right people thrive. That's it. That's the game. And if you got people in your organization aren't thriving, it's either because we haven't said this is what the environment is and you haven't created it. That's on you. Or you have, and they just don't fit. That's on them. And some people are willing to fail, especially if you allow them to do that in silence. But when you start putting public scorecards and competitive, you know what I mean, friendly competition, I find that failing in public is a much more difficult thing to endure. So having a fun, competitive environment, like A players don't mind being measured. It just validates their A status. C players who identify as A players hate all of a public scorecards, dashboards, leaderboards. They despise it because it ruins the little story they're telling themselves. And you know what I mean? Like golf, you drive for show and you putt for dough. Like it doesn't matter if your top line is massive, if your EBITDA, your bottom line is sad. Like what are you doing? It's the little things that bring outsized profits, high retention, like just turning over staff at a high rate because A players won't tolerate C managers or C executives. So if you're having a lot of turnover, it's because you got a bunch of bad bosses. People don't quit bad companies, they quit crappy bosses. So I like to think I'm a heat-seeking missile for bad bosses. Once I remove the bad bosses, everything just kind of lifts up. So a lot of the pain and suffering that businesses are currently experiencing, most of it is self-inflicted.
So not referring to founders or CEOs as bad bosses, which can be the case as well, but going to that topic of founder CEO, what's that moment when a founder or CEO realizes what they're doing now or how they're operating is not going to get them to that next level?
Well, usually, I mean, comparison is the enemy of happiness. However, usually they go to a conference and they meet another CEO and their problems are different. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what city we're going to pick next to go dominate. We're kind of vacillating, you know what I mean? Versus, oh my God, we can't get market number one settled. We've been doing this a long time. You'd think we'd be better at it. So I think it's contextual. If you've ever seen a world-class business that has like 94% retention and engagement, that is like, wow. Like think about the difference between a 5-star hotel and a 4-star hotel. It's like, how does it smell? Everyone, including all the support staff, know your name. Like that's the 5th star right there. It's just some other senses and another level of how do they know that? I can't believe that. That's what happens to get that 5th star. And it's just a little extra, and it's mindful and it's a curated experience. And what does that look like? And if our job is just like, keep it between the ditches today, like, all right, your standard is survival. I get that. But there's levels to this game. What level do you want to play at? And it's a decision and a commitment to raise levels. And not everybody in your organization wants to go to the next level. And your job is to identify them, remove them, just simply to make space for someone who's probably awesome and would thrive at your business, but they're suffering at an inferior culture. So when we hang on to the wrong people, not only do they lose, the team lose, the company loses, but we're really getting a 4th loser, which is someone who would thrive. So that's my little pep talk to folks when it's time to liberate someone to the market, is that person is probably going to find their spot. We're clearly not it. They don't want to fail, even though they're not going to do anything about it. You need to be brave and do something about it. But the real winner is the person who comes here and absolutely thrives. And if you hang on to that wrong person, there's no opportunity to level up with the right people.
Seen that so much, where somebody who's just struggling, or they're nice enough, but they're just not getting it done, and then they go find their home and they excel because it's the world they need to be in. No doubt. What's one thing you've changed your mind on over your career or your life that has really shifted?
Yeah, control is an illusion, right? Without getting too deep here, we always say control the controllables. So I guess if you kind of set up the environment where everyone is aligned, it makes sense. We do this because we get this outcome, and this outcome is really important, and we have that, and we create process and systems and automations to support that. That's about as much control. And then getting people to follow that, that's the second piece. So if someone doesn't want to follow it, do it because I pay you or I'll fire you. Oh boy, we just kind of lost it there. So really, I think the thing is, like, I'll tell like my founders, like, listen, you're the commissioner of this league. We are playing a game. And what are the stats? Like, what's your baseball card? For every position at your company, what's the baseball card? Like, how do I know if I'm going to the minors? How do I know if I'm getting a $1 million contract? How do I know if I'm going to the All-Star game in my own G6 jet, right? Like, that's because in baseball, someone who bats 450, right, has a G5, someone who bets 350s, and the major, someone bets 250s, you're going to get some seasoning in a small market team. And the difference in that is 2 extra hits every 10 times, or, something like that, right? Is the difference between world class and not quite ready for prime time. Every position at every company has a range of players and stats. And if we're not really tracking and letting people play the great game, then like, what are we doing? So if we can't really control people, but we can create a game and gamify and make something fun and rewarding personally, professionally, and we can tie what all of your employees do into the impact. So when we have a great customer success story, we don't just give it as a headline. I'm going to drill down in that story and say, this person in the mailroom, this person on the warehouse dock, this attaboy, attagirl wouldn't have came in unless everybody did their job. So this is for everybody, not for the salesperson, the account manager, or the vice president of awesome who wants to take credit for all this stuff. It's a team win. And sports teams and military teams and any other team win together, not as individuals. So I think really focusing on what does a healthy team look like. Another sports analogy, we talk about role players, right? You're not going to see the catcher throwing pitches. You're not going to see the catcher in left field. Like, all these players have played this one position their entire life. It's the same, right? That's why when we're having a sales issue and the finance guy sparks up, like, hold up, don't remember asking for your opinion. We have a sales expert of 20 years talking right now. So that groupthink, well, the way we do it in EOS is we have an issue. Okay, who raised the issue? Who gets a high five? Thanks for making us better. Who owns this issue on our accountability chart? Everyone else hush. Now say, what's your issue in one sentence? Don't circle the airport, land the plane. So then if we have groupthink or bunch ball, you ever see a bunch of 8-year-olds play soccer, Graham? Oh, yeah. It's like a cloud of dust with a bunch of kids. The ball squirts out and then the mob follows it. Sometimes the goalie's at midfield. You're like, okay, that's bunch ball. Real professional ball is played by subject matter experts by position. So if you think the same thing in business, we really should be asking the experts what they think, not telling the experts what we think. Steve Jobs' famous quote, we don't hire experts and tell them what to do. We hire experts and they tell us what to do. That's the whole point.
Control is an illusion is one of the most important things you've said out of a lot of great points you've dropped today. So I think that's a really important concept that a lot of people take a little too long to realize is we're trying to control everything as leaders. And that's just going to get you in more anguish and stress and It's just not where you want to play, right? You can't control the world, right?
You just have to create the league, create the game, and then find people that want to play it, that works for them. And once someone says, I don't like it here, there's no reason to hang on to them and subject your good folks to people that either don't get one or have the capacity to be there. So slow to hire, quick to fire is what great teams do. Quick to hire, slow to fire is what big monolithic government agencies and low IQ corporate teams operate. And that's where all those TV shows come from, those guys.
Certainly. So we've covered a lot of ground. Anything else that we haven't touched on that you'd like to leave here with the listeners today?
Well, I think the most important thing is to, as a founder, as a senior leader, or even as someone in the management team, is just to understand the whole alignment thing. It doesn't have to be a fight. But if you haven't really codified what we're doing, who we are, why we exist, going back to like a business operating system like EOS, if you're not running on an operating system, you're making it up. Like, I know you got an accounting system. I know you got some financial things. There's probably some hiring, some HR programs, right? They're required by the government, so you should be doing that. But an operating system is something that sits over the whole thing. These smartphones, probably a bad name for them because I think I get dumber every time I spend time on this thing. But it has an OS, whether you're an Android or an Apple or whatever. The OS is what ties the camera to the Snapchat dog ears and it ties your device together. So ask yourself, like, what is my business operating system? And if you don't have one, this might be a good time to read traction and reach out.
Certainly. What do you want those you've worked with to say about your impact on them?
Yeah, that guy, wow. Really passionate, really high energy, super committed to their success. I think if you'd ask people, it'd be like, wow, those days with Chris, those full day sessions were powerful, impactful, and there's no doubt that I care about the team. And when they say they want something, they describe it to me, and I'm like, ooh, I want that too. I might want to even a little bit more because that's my nature. But, helping people see it and then holding them accountable. And when I see them maybe not living up to their declaration, their vision, my job is their coach, because EOS implementers are teachers, facilitators, and coaches. The coach part comes out. And it feels really great to get random emails. Hey, we just sold the company for $937 million. What kind of scotch do you prefer? Or, where would you like to go on vacation? Or also getting a letter from someone, that was removed from a team saying, I think you're an a-hole. And then getting an email from that same person 6 months later said, hey, sorry about that last email. I was emotional. You were right. I am thriving at my new company. Like, my life is 142% better, and I didn't see it. You did. Thanks for what you did. So, like, I get thank yous from, exited clients, folks randomly, and I get a lot of referrals. So the referrals are really the ultimate thank you for caring and going hard with a business for a couple of years, like we do.
What's the best place for listeners to follow you and your work? Yeah,
I think LinkedIn, just Chris Hallberg. Find me on LinkedIn. They can find GoExpand at goexpand.com. The Business Sergeant web address, if you would like to hire some elite veterans to level up your leadership on day one, that's bizsgt.com. And of course, EOS Worldwide / Chris Hallberg is where people can find my EOS implementation business.
The Business Sergeant, Chris Hallberg, and EOS implementer of GoExpand. Thank you for your time today. We appreciate you being on Flywheel Leadership.
Awesome. Great to be here, Graham. Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Take care.